In our last video, we were talking about false narratives, and when we're dealing with a significant other who is creating false narratives about us, how hard it can be to understand what the truth is and how we can feel like a shell of a person. So how do we begin to see that the narratives are untrue? How do we begin to actually see through those? I'm going to help you figure that out in this video so you can understand and be able to use this and put this into practice in your day-to-day life. Hi friends, Ashley Berges back today, and today I want to talk about those false narratives and how we can see through those. Okay. One thing that I want to bring up at the very beginning with regards to these false narratives that are given to us by our spouse or significant other. First off, if we were that bad and we were that horrible of a person, why would they still be there? Okay, that's a good question, right? And I want you to think about that. If you were such a horrible person, you were such a bully, or you were so abusive, or you're so mean, or you're so ugly, or people don't like you, if that was the case, why are they still around? And I think that's one of the things that we don't ever think about, because we begin to believe those narratives. I've been in past relationships where I've had people, and it's been a long time, but I've had past relationships where I've had people create these narratives and tell me who I am, okay? Because that's what a false narrative is. It's like it's saying, this is who you are, no doubt, believe this, take this as face value, live with it, feel bad about it, feel down about it, right? That's what it's about. And I remember one of the false narratives that was told to me, this was a very, very long time ago, but they said, you are so irritating because you are so loud. You just need to get quiet. You need to be quiet when you talk, because people just get irritated by you and your voice is so loud. You really need to bring it down a notch. And I remember hearing that over and over and over again. And it got to the point that when I would get home, I would get really quiet. And I also caught myself in public at events and dinners and stuff, talking so quietly at one moment that people would say, I can't hear you. Are you okay? Is something wrong with your throat? I can't hear you. And it's interesting how we begin to believe these narratives, okay? Because they're spoken over and over and over again, and the person speaks with such confidence usually. But it's interesting how it's almost like put down after put down after put down. And so I want you to start thinking about the false narratives that have been told to you, okay? And I bet a lot of these situations are very recent. And so I want you to think about it. When you have been told something derogatory about yourself, what was the situation? What were you told? And do you honestly believe it? See, the thing is that sometimes we believe the worst about ourselves because when we were kids, right? Growing up, either our family that raised us or teachers or whoever. And, there's good families and there's good teachers, but, there are some toxicity there as well that told us about who we weren't or why we weren't good or why we had this problem. And so we kind of go along with that, right? And so because when we get married or when we're in a relationship, we assume that the other person has our back or believes in us. And so when they do tell us stuff like that, it hurts, but we believe it, okay? And so that's why we become kind of a shell of a person in some of these relationships, because we really don't know. I mean, maybe that is me. Maybe that's not, maybe that's who I am. But the way that we can figure this out, first off, is realizing not only who we are by defining ourselves, by really looking inwardly at our values, understanding how we define ourselves, how do we believe in ourselves, what is at the core of our being, okay? And most of the time we don't do this. Like I've said before, we know more about someone we met walking by a stranger. We like talking to them for 10 minutes a lot of times than we know about ourselves. And so we got to do a lot of introspection, okay? And the reason why we're in relationships that are toxic in nature is because we haven't done the introspection, right? Because if we had known who we were, the next time that somebody was to give us a false narrative, we would probably be like, okay, you know what? I'm laughing at that because that's so wrong. And I'm not really sure why you're so insecure that you want to spin this yarn, because this is not the truth. Once we begin to know who we are, we begin to see through the false narratives, because the false narratives are created by the other person to control us. It's all about control. It's not only about control, it's about literally dividing us from everybody because we feel so insecure, we feel so bad about ourselves that we're just so happy that this one person is like standing by us, because God bless we have them. We wouldn't have anybody. We'd have nobody. We'd be completely alone as an island, just roaming the world by ourselves with nothing. Okay? So I want you to think about that. I have a lot of folks that come to me and they say, well, this toxic relationship was horrible. It's ruined me. It only ruins you if you allow it to ruin you, because I found that the more toxic the relationship, eventually it's going to ignite a fire under your butt to get you to move on from it. But we can't move on from it until we know that we deserve better. And how do we know that we deserve better? We have to figure that out. But we have to figure out who we are to know what we need to deal with, to know what we don't have to deal with. We have to begin to see our value within. Okay? And the only way we can do that is to spend time looking for what is within. Okay? When I started doing this was 20-something years ago, when I let go of that last failed relationship, and I ended that. It was not good. And I remember spending that time getting to know myself. For over a year, I spent a lot of time. I got to know who I was. I got to know what my values were. I got to know what my beliefs were. Not what my parents taught me. Not what my grandparents taught me. Not what the church taught me. Not what the school taught me. What I believed in my own heart. Separate from that. That's why the show we have is called Perspectives with Ashley Berges, because it's about perspective. It's not perception. It's about finding your own perspective in life, right? So I figured that out, and I started realizing all the false narratives from the past that was told to me that I believed, right? Because I was insecure. I didn't believe in my value. I found people that also didn't believe in my value because I didn't see my value. How are they going to see my value? So they treated me like that, right? And so it wasn't until I started valuing my own value that I started to enter into friendships and other relationships later down the road that did see my value. And so what I'm saying to you is that toxic relationships are painful, but they could be the wake-up call to you realizing who you truly are if you've had enough pain. Okay, so if you're dealing with false narratives where somebody's telling you that you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, or nobody likes you, or you're weak, or you're horrible in bed, or whatever the list goes on, I mean, I'm sure you can fill in the blank. If that's what you're dealing with and someone's putting you down on a constant basis, you have to ask yourself, am I ready to figure out who I am? Do I want to know that information? And I'm here to tell you, the information you find out is not scary. It's scarier not to know. It's like not wanting to know that if you have a disease or something, and so you go your whole life worrying about it instead of just getting the test done. Okay, so basically what we're talking about is getting to know yourself and figuring out what you really stand for. So the next time that you deal with any sort of false narratives, you understand that it is false. And one of the biggest things that I want to talk about here in the next video is about programming, okay? Because what happens here in our programming, we all have programming of some sort if we haven't dealt with it already. And programming keeps us in to those same types of relationships, that same type of environment. When we've been in toxicity before, it feels normal, right? It feels like our normal. And so we enter into another toxic relationship, right? And so what we're doing and what we need to do in order to dislodge the false narratives and to stop believing them is to understand what programming we're dealing with that is connecting directly to the false narrative that makes us believe it. Okay, and see, that's the thing, is that people say, well, why would somebody believe that they're a jerk? Or why would somebody believe all these negative things about themselves? But if we have trained ourselves to believe it, and we put ourselves around people constantly that tell us that, we're going to believe that as our normalcy. We're going to believe that as our truth. Okay, and so that's the key, is that understanding where is this coming from, Have I had enough pain? Because sometimes in toxic relationships, we just haven't had enough pain. We need more pain. And if that's where you're at, continue on. But what I'm advising here is to step back and analyze, when am I ready and when am I willing to get real with myself and to begin to do what I need to do on this planet by getting to know who I am, ending the false narratives in my own head, and eventually not being able to accept any false narratives from other people because I know that that's not my truth. I hope this video has helped you. We'll have more videos on this subject matter, because ending the false narratives in our own heads and ending the false narratives by spouses, significant others, friends, whoever, family, is imperative to our success. You know, some of you might have false narratives been shared upon you about your work, your career, how you'll never be successful, how you can never be an entrepreneur because you don't have enough money, you don't have enough power. These are false narratives that keep us from doing what? Keep us from finding our value. In the business world, keep us from being successful, right? You see how these false narratives perpetuate us into a negative spiral about ourselves, and we feel like we don't have enough or we're not good enough. And if we have somebody else echoing that in our life, we feel shame and sadness because we begin to believe it more and more, because I'm already believing it, they're echoing it to me, it's probably true. So we want to end the cycle of negativity that not only hurts us, but it really keeps us down. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and in the comment section below, let me know about when the wake-up call was for you in a toxic relationship. When did you realize that you had had enough, and when were you willing to take the risk of going on your own and figuring out who you are? We also have another option here on the channel. The join button is right there. You can push it and find out what you get by being a member on this channel. We have some great content. We just put up some new content just the other day. So I look forward to hearing from you, and don't forget to live your true life.